Welcome to Cooper's Cogitation. We're exploring the eighth commandment, thou shalt not steal. There's personal and public theft. If I go up to you, put a gun to your head, take your money for a golf course, it's personal theft. If the government passes a rule and they come up to you and put a gun to your head and take your money, that's government theft. It's still theft. Now, governments have incorporated numerous legal enactments. Law comes from God. It's the law of nature or the law of nature's God. Rules are man's violations of the laws of God. They prevent man from acquiring private property, even though we're commanded to dress the garden and keep it. Now, H. Vernon Anderson, in The Moral Basis of a Free Society, excellent book. And The Law, Frederick Bastiat, excellent book. It was actually my first book. Among some of these rules, there are prevent people from acquiring property in the first place, licensing, labor, and zoning rules. Confiscate private property rights, thus transferring ownership to the government. Graduated income, estate, and gift tax rules. Welfare state rules. Rules providing for housing, irrigation, power projects, flood control, and parks. Rules that have abolished the gold-silver standard and substituted irredeemable paper money, institutionalized with fractionalized banking. You know, fractionalized banking, you give them $1 and then they go lend it out 100 times, 100 to 1, or 10,000 to 1, or whatever they want to do. Fractionalize, it's a fraction of what the money is. Regulate the people in the use of property so that control over it is placed in the hands of government and taken from private hands. No list will be attempted here because of the enormous number of rules which should be included. It's merely noted that it would include all the enactments by legislatures, agencies, commissions, by which government regulations, agricultural, labor, finance, banking, transportation, communication, mining, manufacturing, and virtually every other economic endeavor. Our local government provides electricity for a third of the town. They're in competition with private business, but they're supported by the tax dollar. Wow, is there any wonder they have low rates? How about the golf courses? They have city golf courses in competition with private golf courses. Is it any wonder the city has the finest, latest, up-to-datest? They just tax the citizen, take my money at a gunpoint. These enactments are inconsistent with the law, and those who support such a philosophy will be cut off at the last day. Leviticus 25:17. Ye shall not therefore oppress one another. Thou shalt fear thy God, for I am the Lord. Hey, don't oppress me. Don't push your bond and vote for your bond for your paycheck for schools. Okay? Don't do that. You're oppressing me. Oh, and you're oppressing my heritage that I received from my parents and the inheritance I wish to give my children. You have to pay tax on it. That's that. Doctrine and Covenants 121:39, we have learned by sad experiences the nature and disposition of almost all men. As soon as they get a little authority, as they suppose, they will immediately begin to exercise unrighteous dominion. We actually know what's right and good, therefore it is our duty to have others do as we declare. And if they hesitate, we force them. It's for their own good. We know how to save them. If they don't want to be saved, we'll have to force them. They don't want a recreation center. They don't want a first night. Hey, it's best for them. We'll make them do it. Moses 4:1, and I, the Lord, spake unto Moses, saying, Satan, whom thou hast commanded in the name of mine only begotten is the same which was from the beginning. He came before me, saying, Behold, here am I will be thy son. I will redeem all mankind, that not one soul shall be lost. And surely I will do it, therefore give me thine honor. Salvation is good, is what Satan says. Salvation is good. Therefore, I'm going to force you to be good. If you don't want to get forced to be good, we have ways of making you talk. Deuteronomy 24:7. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, and making merchandise of him, or selleth them, then that thief shall die, and thou shalt put evil from among you. Whoa, 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 whoa. So if I kidnap you and say, hey, I'll pay, you can have them back for $100,000, or if I sell them as a slave, or whatever I do. I'm violating that man's work in godly restoration, in creating the godly order. 2, I'm violating his family. 3, I'm violating him. And if I'm caught, I should die. What happens if the government doesn't? What happens if the government legally, I didn't say lawfully, legally kidnaps you and puts you in a prison? Prisons are not discussed in the Bible except after the kings, not discussed in the Book of Mormon except for short-term crises. They're anti-God and anti-law. When they put you in prison, they're legally kidnapping you. Deuteronomy 24:16, the father should not be put to death for the children, nor children put to death for the fathers. Every man shall be put to death for his own sin. That's in the Constitution. That's in the no bill of attainder. That's in the Constitution. And God, of course, clears any ambiguity. I'm responsible for my sins, not my children, not my wife, not my parents. I am. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Gulag Archipelago, resided for a time in the Gulag, a term for prison. Stalin created hundreds of prisons and prisons hundreds of millions of people for 33 years. Former prisoners calculated at least 66 million died. I calculated 500 million were incarcerated over 33 years to get to 66 million. I did that, okay? Existed ancillary camps next to the prison for the families of the prisoners, for the families of the guards, the workers in the prison. And these also had a high death rate. His book, The Soul and the Barbed Wire, Solzhenitsyn, I now use as a reference. Here it is. For centuries, it has been considered that a criminal was given a sentence for precisely this purpose, to think about his crime for the whole period of his sentence, his conscience stricken, repent, and gradually reform. But the Gulag knows no pains of conscience. As far as another 85% of the natives were concerned, they never committed any crimes whatsoever. They were supposed to repent of what? Or that man who had surrendered and become a PW in a hopeless situation, or that he was taking employment under the Germans instead of dying of starvation, or that while working for nothing in the collective farms, he had taken a mite to feed his children. He had taken something from a factory to feed his children. Then he goes to jail. In an earlier volume, a couple sitting for dinner, the police come in and say, hey, he has to come down and answer a few questions. Don't worry about it. He'll be back before dinner's cold. An hour later, she goes to the station. Where's my husband? Sit there, please. She waits an hour. Could I see my husband? Sit there, please. She waits an hour. Could I see my husband, please? She is imprisoned in the gulag for 5 years. No, not with her husband. She goes to the women's facility. Silent confession is fundamental in his book, first book, Solzhenitsyn says in the prison industry and interrogation, they'll do anything to extract a confession. I read some of those things I didn't even imagine. He came up with them. They came up with them. Okay. When you sign a confession, you're saying, I'm guilty. Once you say you're guilty, whatever they have done and will do to you is justifiable. If you didn't do it, don't confess. Now, what happens in America today? Thief's in prison, takes his liberty, his life's threatened by being in prison with individuals who failed primary. Homosexual and heterosexual rape is so common it's hardly discussed. Workers at the prison, guards, know about it and say nothing. His economic viability is damaged, his sociability corrupted. Innocent persons, you and I, pay $30,000 a year per inmate. That was 10 years ago. I don't know what it is now. That's a 6-to-1. A 6-to-1. 6 penalties for 1 violation. Anti-God, anti-law. I do not support prisons. Thank you. We'll talk more later.